Hi guys. I figure I'd make this another video while I'm here. Anyway, this was I had this a couple of years ago and it was so neat, so interesting. And I'd like to share it with you, and I have physical evidence of it. And anyway, I okay, I went into this vision and I was in this place, and it was a sacred place that God had, that God kept. And I walked in, it was a piece of land, and on the land there was a path, like a gravel path, maybe, I don't know, 7 feet wide in the middle walkway. And then there were trees, fir trees against the back, like it was an enclosed natural area. And on each side of the gravel path, there were cages, but they were beautiful, ornate, and they weren't like, they were white. They had white caging, like it would, I don't even know how to describe it. They were like enclosures, more like enclosures, and one would sit on top of another one. And they were all on the row of this, and on the other side there was a row. And they were beautiful trellis type things, and the doors were open. There was no door on the cage, it was just an opening. And inside, I knew this was a sacred place. This was a place that was so high up in God's kingdom, and that I was allowed to be there. And only certain people were allowed to go there, humans. And I was, of course, in spirit because it was a vision. And it was a very high, and I could see the sky. And when I see the sky in one of these visions where God is, it's like it's infinite. You get the feeling like when you look at the sky, you don't really think of it. You know, it goes on and on, but in these visions, it's like the sky is infinite and you're aware of it. And it was like, it wasn't a sunny day. There were some clouds in the sky, but there was light. Everything was light. And in the cages were animals. And there were a mother and a baby in each of the enclosures. I won't call them cages because they were more like enclosures. And they were trellis, beautiful white lattice trellis on each one of them. And they were lined up very neatly. And I saw the grass under my feet. And I knew that I could not, this was God's place where He kept one of each animal. I know this sounds like Noah's Ark, but where God kept in this sacred place one of each animal and their offspring, their baby. And it was to preserve everything that He had made so there would be continuing life. And I knew that I was walking on sacred ground, and I was not even to bend a blade of grass. That's how sacred it was. I was not to leave a mark. I was not to leave. I saw the gravel on the path. Everything was very neat and exacting. And I watched the animals as they slept, and they were sleeping. And yeah, with their babies. And I saw a white bear, a huge white polar bear with a sleeping baby. I saw other animals, and they stirred a little bit sometimes and moved around. And I was so in awe of being allowed to see this, to see God's kingdom of animals that were spirit animals somehow, because it was a vision. So in this place, it was so sacred. It had a Native American type feel to it too, like sacred. And I knew it was very, very, very high in God's kingdom, where He kept the animals to preserve them so they would be safe. And they could leave the enclosure anytime they wanted. And I was very quiet because there were bears, in some of the enclosures. And I was walking on the left hand side and I was carefully looking as I walked, realizing where I was, and everything was crystal clear. I could see every blade of grass. I could see my feet walking on the grass and trying not to, move anything or leave anything. And I came past an owl enclosure on the bottom. There was something else on the top. And there was a mother owl, and she had her babies. And there was suddenly a woman came up behind me. And she was a middle-aged woman. She had curly hair. And she looked at me, and she had the bluest eyes. And she asked me if I could help her. And I said, yes. And there had been a girl inside the owl enclosure who was tending to make sure the owls were okay. But the woman told me, and she looked at me, and she looked into my soul. Like she looked into my eyes, and her eyes were so blue. And she looked at me and she said, I need your help. Could you hold the owl while I get the girl out of the enclosure, because she's hurt the owl somehow. She did something she wasn't supposed to do. And there were no other humans in the enclosures. It was just that girl. And I said yes. And she took the girl, came out, the young girl, and she went with the woman. And while this was going on, she put the owl on my arm, and right like here. And I held the owl. It was a beautiful big owl, and it was right next to me. And I held the owl while she got tended to the girl. And then I went somewhere. I went out of there, and I was then in front of an old stone bridge, and it was forest, except there was a bridge and there was a little gully underneath, but it was dried up. And I knew the bridge was ancient. It was like time, when time started. And it was only just enough for maybe a person to walk. But I chose to take the gully. I chose to not go across the bridge. And after the bridge, there was like a break in the road where the road went straight and then it went to the sides. And I met someone there that I hadn't seen, that I knew from somewhere. And I was like instant recognition. And I said, how have you been? How, we talked for a minute. And this person was kind of a spirit person, and they were on a journey. And they had come across the bridge, but I didn't choose the bridge. I chose to go through the gully. I don't really know what that part means, but then that was the end of the vision. And I knew when I came out of it that I had been in a sacred place where God kept his ark, his animals that he wanted to preserve. And it was very special that I got to be there. And when I woke up, I noticed I had a mark on my arm that I hadn't had before. And my husband noticed, and I said, Bobby, how long have I had this mark on my arm? You can see it's like two little, like little V, and then there's another little dot. And he said, where'd you get that? And I said, I don't know. I said, I told him my vision. And I said, I never saw, I see this all the time because it's right here. I never had that before. It's a deep scar. It's obviously very deep because, I mean, look at it. I know it's kind of hard to see here, but I didn't have it before. And I said, Bobby, I said, that's where the owl was sitting on my arm. And I know that I didn't have that before. And he said, you didn't have that before. And I said, well, I came back with it because that's where the owl sat. So you figure it out, but see, I get to go to places that are sacred, that are not for other people, that are special. I get to see things that other people don't see. And God allows me to be there. He let me see his special place. And I didn't bend a blade of grass. And I felt really blessed to have had that experience and got to hold one of God's creatures and came back with the marks. So if you look closely, you can see another mark right there where there would be 3 prongs. So, it's nice to have this gift, and it makes, it helps people, and I can tell people things that if they're going to be okay, or I can see when people are dying. I see flowers around. I can envision them in the hospital room, and I see flowers around them, which means they're going to die. I can see relatives around them that they're already halfway there, and I can tell people they're going to be okay. I can tell my husband this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Um, it's very, very special, and I'm blessed and I'm thankful to God to be able to see these things. And angels, I believe the woman in the vision was an angel, because I've seen angels before. I've seen my angel, I've seen other angels. My husband saw my angel when I was doing a healing on his legs. He had ulcers for 3 years on his legs. And I did the surgery on them, because I was in wound care, as a medical assistant, and I knew how to do it. And I would, take away the necrotic tissue, and then I would do healing. And when I do healings, my hands get really hot, and I can feel the spirit energy, the warmth, the peace, the love. And my husband turned around when I was doing it, and he was crying, and he said, I just saw your angel. He was an old man with a long white beard and a cane, and it was your angel. And he was here. He was helping you doing the healing. And I said, that's who does the healing. It's the angel. And usually the angels that I see have these blue eyes, and they're like almond shaped. And they, like, blue like the sea. And one time I had an angel. My angel was named Raphael, and I met him several times. One time I was looking at a room, and his color is like a rose, a beautiful rose pink color. That's how he always came. He would come to me, the colors would start to come together and swirl. And I looked at her room, and everything was beautiful in the room. It was like ornate, and there were long sheer curtains, and the breeze was blowing, and I was looking at this huge bed, and I was watching, and I was laying on the bed. I was watching myself lay on the bed, and everything was in silky and sheer and beautiful. The room was all lit up with a color, and I saw Raphael hovering over my body, about maybe this high over my body while I was lying on the bed. And his hair wasn't falling. He was just like he'd be standing up, and he was hovering over my body. And it was just his way of saying, I'm here. And one time I met him, and I came into, we have a historic, it's called the Historic Newcastle. It's an old, this is where we live, is where the ships first landed near Wilmington when the colonists came to America. It was a port city, and we have a historic area where the houses have to be built to code from the 1700s, 1600s. Everything, my husband has done some painting, so he knows everything has to be the exact right color. Anyway, I was on this kind of a street, cobblestones, and there were awnings on the shops. And it was one little shop after another, just like it is in historic Newcastle. There's these beautiful cobblestone streets, and the shops are all connected, and they're all the old fashioned style. And then comes the park, and then comes the river, Delaware River, and it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. Except you don't wear heels when you walk on cobblestone. Trust me on that one. You don't wear like stiletto heels. Anyway, I was on the street, and people were milling around, and it was crystal clear. Everything was just beautiful, and the awnings were there. And I was watching the people, and I was walking along, and all of a sudden I spotted this man standing under an awning. And he was standing in front of a shop. And he had a peat coat on and a cap. And he was fair. And I went up to him, and all of a sudden he was very tall, and he had those blue eyes. And I felt such recognition of this man. Like I had known him forever. He was handsome. He was white. He was fair, but he was wearing the cap and the pea coat. And he stood there, and our eyes met. And I can't tell you, I felt like this was my brother. Like I had never seen him before. And I felt such a deep connection to this person. And I said, I know you. And he looked at me. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me. And I can't tell you the joy and happiness and home and recognition I felt for this man. And I reached out and I touched his face. And he kind of went back a little bit, like I wasn't supposed to do that. And I didn't care. I just felt like I had come home. And I realized that this was Raphael. This was my angel. And this was the recognition of God and and my angel and heaven and heavenly, and he looked kind of, and I said, oh my God. And it was just such a feeling. I can't describe it. And I knew that that was my angel. And I had seen him in form, in human form, in my vision. And it was crystal clear. And the eyes, the blue eyes, like the sea. And I came out of it and I was crying. I was like, I told Mom, I said, I just met Raphael. And I wasn't supposed to touch him, but I had to. It was like because I knew him. So this was just a couple of my angel experiences. Raphael was with me for 8 years until my mother died, and then my mother started coming a couple months after she died. And anyway, so I did see my angel, and I got it. I wasn't supposed to touch him, but I did. Because maybe you don't touch angels. I don't know, but I couldn't help it. Anyway, so that was kind of nice. That was very nice. And he was with me a lot. He usually came when I needed him, and I needed help. And I could summon him by constant meditating on, and I would see his color, and sometimes I would go into a vision, or sometimes I would just feel the peace, the joy, the calm, the home when he was there. It was like part of heaven. So that's all for now. And so there are angels, and they are real. And you have an angel too, and you just don't know it. And Raphael helped me through a lot of hard times. And I love him and I miss him. I can meditate on him again and get him back. I probably should because my mother stopped coming after 7.5 years. She had other places to be and, to move on. So you take care, and I love you, and keep the faith, and always remember God loves you too. Bye.